time to learn a Chau staple, meat and choy, which is to say any meat and any vegetable. Today we're gonna do chicken and broccoli, but before we even start cooking, we have to prep our food. So we're gonna marinate some meat and peel some broccoli. But if you know how to do that already, or if you don't wanna peel your broccoli, skip ahead to this time. So start with a handful of chicken thighs and cut out the bone and cut off the extra skin. But if there's any skin that's attached to the chicken, keep that in there because we all know that that's the best part, right? But also if you don't care for the skin, then you can just make it easy for yourself and get the boneless, skinless chicken thighs and then just cut that up into even-sized cubes. I prefer the skin, so I go through the pain of cutting it all up. I usually start by turning the chicken upside down so that you can kind of peel off all this extra skin because the extra skin is only slippery and will just be extra fat. Okay, so you find your bone, cut the loose chicken around it off, shave off some of the chicken that's on the bone if you can. So just cut around your bone fragments. And then there's still some meat on that, but that's fine because you can save your chicken bones for broths and soups and stuff. I don't know how to do that yet, but Mom does, so I save them for her. Okay, so for these pieces that you cut off already before, just cut them into even-sized chunks. Just making it bite-sized. It doesn't have to be any particular size as long as they're even sizes. Now that the chicken's cut up, we're gonna marinate it with some vegetable oil, sesame oil, salt, cornstarch, soy sauce, onion powder, garlic powder, and sugar. I can't say that I know the exact amount of any of the seasonings I just put in, but let's say for these 4 thighs, I put anywhere between 1 teaspoon to half a tablespoon of everything in. So the oils, I'd say put the same amount of each in, but obviously not too much because then you're gonna have super oily chicken. The salt, put a little bit of. The cornstarch, you can put a little bit more than the salt. The sugar, same thing, kind of just a little bit. The onion powder, garlic powder, and soy sauce, that's all up to your taste because I like a lot of the onion powder and garlic powder, so I put extra in. Soy sauce, I put more than I put the oil in. So it's all up to you. If you can see that it's becoming a lot, maybe just, like lighten up a little bit. And also in the beginning, if you're just starting out trying to figure out your measurements and your ratios, put in a little bit less because you can always put in more later, but you can't take it out once you put it in, right? The chicken goes in the fridge while we work on the broccoli. It is a longer and more tedious process, but I do prefer them peeled. So if you want them peeled, this is how you do it. If you don't want them peeled, at the very least, cut these little bottom tips off. Slice the bottom off, then cut some of these branches off. To peel, you want to hold your knife like this with your pointer finger on the blade and the rest of your hand kind of as the base. And you're just gonna make a little cut. Not too deep in. You can see where the peel is, so you kind of want to just cut right where that is. So since you can see where the peel is, that's where you want to put your cut, and then you grab the other end with your thumb like that, and you just peel back. So cut, and peel back. The stems you don't have to get perfect because there's so many crevices in there. But once you have the stem ready, you can just cut it in little diagonal chunks. And then throw that in your colander to rinse off later on. For the topper part, it's much simpler because there's no pieces that stick out. So same thing, you slice a little bit in and then you're basically grabbing between your thumb and the blade and just peeling back. And then you just want to cut it to size. So like this is not really bite size, so I cut that in half and then I might cut it again because that's a better size. When you get to this chunk at the end that has all these little branches on it, this one doesn't have to be perfect because there's so many little pieces going on. But then you just cut that smaller like this into pieces. And then you just do that for everything else. Chicken's been cut and marinated, broccoli's been peeled. Now we can cook. Start with your stove on medium-high, and when the pot gets hot enough, put some oil in, and when that gets hot enough, put the chicken in. I put in a little more than half of the chicken thighs that we prepped earlier because 4 chicken thighs was way too much. We'll brown the chicken for a little bit and then add the broccoli, the oyster sauce, and some water for gravy. The amount of water that you add in is totally up to you. That's just the amount of gravy that you want to put in. Now it's time for the oyster sauce, and again, I don't know the measurements, so I would guess to put at least a tablespoon in. I'm probably gonna put more than that, but I also just put it from the squeeze bottle, so I just eyeball it. Once you have it mixed all good, cover it up, turn your stove down, let it simmer until the broccoli is cooked. But don't forget to make your rice in the meantime. I'm gonna show you how to wash your rice in case you don't know how. Please wash your rice. You're gonna do about 3 cycles of this. Put some water in the pot, zhuzh it around a little bit, squeeze the rice around. The water's gonna be super clouded the first time. Do it a second time, it'll look better. Do it a third time, it'll look better. That's when I usually stop. You can do more if you want to. So to measure the amount of water that you put in the rice, I don't use a measuring cup or anything. I just use my hand, and I put my hand flat on the rice, and if the water is anywhere between the first and second knuckle of my middle finger, that's how I know that it's enough. Some people stick their finger full in, or like straight in, and if it's like up to the first knuckle, I think that's how they know. There's different techniques, but I use the flat hand method, style, technique, whatever it is. But now it's ready to cook. Remember that when you're cooking rice, on top of just plugging it in, you have to press the cook button. I forget to do that every now and again. The rice is still cooking, but the broccoli is done now, so turn off the stove, take it off the burner so your broccoli doesn't turn into mush, and maybe take the lid off, because then otherwise it's gonna keep cooking under there. Almost forgot a very important last step, and that's to make the gravy thicker. So what we'll do is get some cornstarch and some water, like a 1-to-1 ratio. I use a little bit less than a spoon, and then obviously the same amount of water. Mix it around, and then you can pour it into your pot and mix that slowly in. And then you'll watch as the gravy kind of gets a little thicker. Leave the pot on low, and then let it cook for another minute or 2, and then you're done and you can serve. That's how you make chicken and broccoli, meat and choy, a Chau classic. Mmm. There are also like 3 lessons in one in there. What a bargain.